Welcome to 2024, and welcome to the Munchkin Minute, your bi-weekly looking at some tabletop gaming news and more. I'm your host, Dan, the Board Game Man, and this is your news for January 8th, 2024. First up, Renegade Game Studio is going to be releasing here in the U.S. Vale of Eternity. That'll be out in March, and I've got a pre-order link up there, and it'll be up there for $35. Now, this one technically came out last year, but it's not really over here widely available, but I did get to play this one actually last week. My buddy from Man vs. Meeple, Dave Waybright, came over, and he did bring this one over, and he's been raving about it. This was his number one game of the year last year, and I have to say, it's really, really good. So I'm going to highly recommend you check this one out. Vale of Eternity, a 2 to 4 player kind of card drafting game. Plays in about half hour to 45 minutes, kind of a 1 hour wonder, kind of a medium, I'd say a lighter to medium weight kind of drafting game. It's not really very hard, and you could probably play this one pretty easy, family weight or lighter weight. It does have this feeling of seasons, just kind of the way the cards interact, because there's a lot of cool card interaction in there. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember if this is the same designer as Seasons as well. BGG is down, so I can't pull that up right now. But anyway, so what you do in Vale of Eternity, you kind of use a kind of a serpentine drafting where it goes 1 to 3, 3 to 1. And then you kind of put out these 2 discs, and you're deciding whether you want to take these cards. There'll be a kind of a square display where it has a certain amount of cards that are in one of the 4 locations, depending on basically what faction the card is in. Now, you're going to either be getting that card into your hand, and then on your turn, if you've got money or, the resources, you can then play the card into your tableau, or you're discarding the card itself. Depending on which faction it comes with, you're going to get a certain amount of resources. Now, they have these coins. They come in I believe it's 1, 3s, and 6s. Now, one of the catches of the game is you can never have more than 4 of any one coin or any coin, period. So if you have 4 1s, that's it. If you have 4 6s, that's it. You can't have 4 6s and 4 1s. You can only have 4 chits of any, basically, no matter what denomination it is. Also, it's a 10-round game where you're playing up to 60 points. And what you're doing is you can only have, depending on what round it is, you can only have that many cards in your tableau. Now, with those cards, when you put them in your tableau, we'll either have round effects or permanent effects that'll give you other advantages, or they'll have basically your kind of the one-time ability. And there are other cards that'll bounce cards back in your hand, or cards will go back to the deck. All sorts of really cool things. It's very easy to learn. Very cool to play. There's a lot of cards in this, so that you'll have a lot of different interactions, and each game is a little bit different. I really recommend this one. I think this is going to be one that's going to be a big hit here in the U.S. and this year. But like I said, this will be certainly on my top 10 from last year, since it is technically a 2023 release. But they'll be releasing that one again. It'll be $35, and I'll have a pre-order, and I highly recommend you check that one out. Sticking with Renegade, they also announced a new expansion for the G.I. Joe deck building game, which is a deck building game near and dear to my heart. I absolutely love this one. This one is called Silent Interlude, this expansion. It's got a couple of missions, and one of them is going to be basically solo only, which looks pretty cool. This little expansion will be out for, in April, and it'll be $30. Floodgate Games is going to be releasing Skyrockets this month. This will be $35. This is kind of your next succession of kites, or like the next step for kites. Now, in kites, you use sand timers to keep your kite in the air. It's all cooperative, and kind of depending on the card you play, you're then flipping over sand timers. You don't want any of the sand timers to run out. Really cool. Now, where kites is more of a family weight game, they say that Skyrockets is scratching a lot of that same itches as kites, but they're both cooperative real-time games. And now, and they're basically the same mechanic with flipping sand timers with cards. They say that Skyrockets sets apart from kites with its complexity. Now, Skyrockets is kites for quote-unquote gamers and people who enjoy the experience of a game like kites, but are looking for more of a challenge to themselves with a wider variety of play experience. Will find a lot to enjoy in Skyrockets, they say. I can recommend this one because, again, Kites was an amazing game and one of my favorite games of last year as well. I really kind of was it a couple years ago? But anyway, I really like it a lot. I highly recommend it as a family weight game. So this one will be pretty cool to check out. This week, Mantic also a big announcement this week, I guess. Mantic announced that they will be releasing a tabletop version of Halo, which is a Halo miniatures skirmish game, which will be out in September of this year. And they're going to be releasing more previews as the year goes on. And they say that the big preview will be out. A lot of previews will be out in this March. Next up, Em Gluck will release a new edition of El Grande that'll be out this month. It'll be $45. They say they'll have upgraded components and a couple of mini expansions that are not in the base game. Now, if you know El Grande is kind of one of the grandfathers of Euro games. It's probably been about 15 years now. Such a really good game, but it is kind of the Euro game. It's got area control and kind of playing certain cards. What's really cool is kind of the card play. You only have a certain amount of cards throughout the game, and everybody kind of has the same kind of mixed cards, but it's all a matter of when you kind of use them. And you're going to be putting cubes out for area control, and then you're also going to be kind of putting cubes out into this tower. Now, you can kind of, if you've got a really good memory, you can count on who put what cubes in there, and you can figure that all out. Or basically, kind of it's a surprise. You just try to get the area control of inside the tower, and then you kind of open up, you kind of lift the tower and see how many people have in there. But really, really great game. Kind of one of the quintessential Euro games you should play if you do like Euro games. And again, it's one of the original kind of older games. Speaking of kind of older Euro games, Rio Grande will be releasing a new edition of Vladimir Suchy's ShipYard. That'll be out later this year. I think they said it was the summer. I don't really have an exact date, but this one will be about $70. It also appears, again, to be upgrading some components and changing a few things. Now, ShipYard, El Grande, I would say, is kind of a medium weight Euro. ShipYard is a heavier weight Euro. And in ShipYard, you're kind of making these big kind of tanker boats, like big, large shipping boats, the ones that you kind of see container ships, and you're kind of moving them throughout there, and you're just kind of the way you're constructing them to be able to hold more things. It is a real heavy economic type feel Euro, but a lot of fun in that, and I think it's one of Suchy's first games, but it is really, really solid. Now, up to from Suchy to another great designer. Let's go into a couple of games by Rheiner, Knizia. Now, Asmodee is releasing Marabunta. This is a kind of a roll and write game by Space Cowboys. This one should be out as of this recording. It'll be about $20 to $25. And it's kind of a pretty cool little I split you choose mechanic. Now, I split you choose, or what we call the divvy mechanic, is one of the mechanics that I think is an unsung thing. This is kind of a design I've been working on forever that uses this mechanic. I think it's really cool because it's very much kind of almost a prisoner's dilemma. So in this game, you'll get a certain amount of dice and you're going to put them in to two basic buckets. Basically, you'll have 6 dice and you're going to put them in you're going to divvy them up into 2 groups there. And what's going to happen is once you divvy them up, then the other people are going to decide which one they're going to use, and then they're going to decide which one you use. So you can't make one too good and you can't make one too bad, because then you're just going to get screwed on this. So that's what basically the divvy mechanic is. So looks pretty cool. $20 to $25 is a nice little price point there for kind of a roll and write. Pegasus Spiel is going to be releasing Rheiner Knizia's Havalandi. That'll be out this month as well in the US. And this one is going to be about $40. This is a 2 to 4 player game. Another kind of 1 hour wonder, kind of a lighter to medium weight. This is kind of has your normal Knizia kind of feel to it, where it's easy to learn. And then the scoring is kind of a little wacky. This is all about kind of hot air balloons, and kind of as you're doing your path and putting your kind of tile laying or chit laying down there in your kind of putting out your routes and such there. So it also, so this is going to be a pretty cool one. Again, a bit lighter there. Another one that's should be kind of fun to play and has your quintessential Rheiner Knizia scoring. He always has some weird ways of scoring, but they're always kind of a real fun to play, and that'll be $40. Last up for this week, we've got some news that really made me relook at the calendar and make sure it wasn't April Fool's. So Stonemaier Games announced that they're going to be releasing Wormspan in Q1. This is designed by apiary designer Connie Vogelman. And it's said to be ready to ship later this month, and it will release in March. Now, per Stonemaier, there's no price yet, but it'll be similar to Wingspan. So my guess is going to be about $55 to $60 for this. And he also stated that they printed 100,000 copies. That is a lot. Now, of course, you're printing money here for a game which looks to expand the base gameplay, of course, just by a little, and it's probably about a half step beyond a retheme or a reskin. Stonemaier says that it's not, Stegmaier said it's not a reskin, and by the letter of what I can agree, but it does look like some new mechanics in there, but it's very, very close to kind of a retheme or reskin. But it's kind of looks similar to what Uwe Rosenberg does with some of his mechanics. So you've got kind of like where you've got games that are same basic mechanics, and then makes a very, very similar game, just kind of using that same framework of the game and then advancing it. So Uwe, like I said, it's framework, no pun intended. So framework is a game that kind of expanded on Nova Luna and another, I think it was Sagani. So you had those 3 games, which basically all use kind of that same some drafting with tile laying. And then he also did things where he had a 3 series of games, Feast of Odin and some others that he used polyominoes for the 3 heavy Euros. So there's nothing new here. But just cashing in on a big way, because I am sure a good chunk of those 100,000 units will fly off the shelves because people are just going to absolutely eat this one up. And they're going to sell a gigantic number of games. I kind of applaud them for not going to Kickstarter on a game that is going to sell, just sell like gangbusters and sell well, and instead of making everyone wait 2 years for it on Kickstarter. But it'll be interesting to see in a few months. I love dragons, of course, like many, many people, and I like them more than birds. So I think I'll certainly give it a play when someone I know gets a copy. Now, Wormspan, 1 to 5 player game. Of course, I always love solo games. Plays in about 90 minutes, and it's got a medium weight Euro to it. Again, Connie Volgeman is the designer of the very popular from last year Apiary, also from Stonemaier Games. So this will be a pretty cool one to at least check out and see if it is just a retheme. And it'd be interesting to see, how it's received once it does come out. So we got one crowdfunding here. Like I said, this is kind of that time of year where there's not a whole lot good on crowdfunding. I only really found one that I thought was interesting. And of course, it's a game that's already been out and it is highly popular. This is the Votes for Women second printing. This is the second printing of the award-winning board game on the women's suffrage movement and a ratification of the 19th Amendment. This has got about 2.5 weeks to go. Well funded. And this one is being put out by Fort Circle Games. And you can get a copy of Votes for Women for $75. And you can get 2 copies for $140, which is a little bit different. And of course, they've got a nice large 6 copies for $250. This is again a 1 to 4 player game. Plays in about 2 hours. It's got a medium weight Euro kind of the gameplay. It really is kind of, even though it's 1 to 4, it's really kind of a 2-player game at its heart. But it is a fun little kind of a Euro, kind of a heavier kind of card play with some pretty cool theme to it there. But I highly recommend checking that one out. That is Votes for Women. Thanks for joining me today. If you see any news you think I'd like to feature, go ahead and shoot me a message at GeekJockDan on Twitter. And of course, please check out Majorspoilers.com for more content by Steven and the rest of the Major Spoilers crew. And check out the Geek All-Stars podcast. That's our show. We do a lot of board game, card game, video games, movies, TV, and a little bit of everything. As always, I'm Dan, the Board Game Man, and I'll see everyone in a couple of weeks for another Munchkin Minute.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.